And now to this, China is set to overtake the U.S. economy in the year 2032 as Asian economies might all continue to grow. Herb London Center for Policy Research president, joins us now. Herb, what are your thoughts on this?
Look, I think you have to put this matter in context. The Chinese economy at the moment is roughly a $12 trillion economy. We have an $18 trillion economy. They're growing at about 2% a year. We're growing at 3.5% a year. So at least in the short term, we will outdistance the Chinese. In the long term, it's a different perspective.
Why does everyone else use different numbers, saying it's 6.9%, 7%?
I mean, part of the difficulty is that you never can get accurate numbers from the Chinese.
Right.
Chinese for years have been talking about 7%. They were not growing at 7%.
Well, is it a danger to dismiss out of hand the notion that they're going to catch us when it's the largest market for luxury watches? It's the largest market for automobiles. It's the largest, when Burberry, the luxury clothing maker, went public, they decided to do it in Hong Kong because they're closer to the majority of their new customers. So something is going on there.
Look, the pivot in the world economy is towards Asia. There's no question that's true. It's also true if you look at this matter in a granular level, you see a lot of trifling matters in the American economy. I mean, an app for tooth whitening, that may be part of the GDP. China is concentrating on technology and the Silk Belt, on a commercial avenue for the distribution of Chinese goods around the world.
Well, they're investing a bunch of money in this whole new Silk Road.
That could be a kind of interesting moment for the United States, for us to come to the realization that our economy has to move in a somewhat different direction.
So if we start to go into these new trade deals and more bilateral deals and rip everything up, it takes time to negotiate them with all these various countries involved. The Europeans seem very open to the Silk Road and doing more trade with China and other Asian countries. How do we prevent them from really, not necessarily overtaking us, but getting a big jump start on us?
Well, there are lots of things that you can do from a strategic standpoint. Number one, there's no reason why we shouldn't create an economic Anglosphere, where the Anglosphere nations, England, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, United States, work together to create their own free trade agreements. And there's also no reason why the United States can't start thinking seriously about developing its own engineering Sputnik moment. That moment where we start to put an emphasis on mathematics and technology training in the United States that is so essential for the future.
I really hope that happens. I know a lot of people dismiss these OECD grades with reading, math, and science, but the numbers are horrific. I mean, they really are horrific. I do want to ask you about South Korea, Herb, because a lot of people are predicting, they actually believe that North Korea is going to be open to talks in 2018. But President Trump's latest tweet makes it sound like it's really unlikely. In fact, here's a tweet. Caught red-handed, very disappointed that China is allowing oil to go into North Korea. There will never be a friendly solution to the North Korean problem if this continues to happen. Of course, these reports have always been out there that despite what China says, they still have this serious economic relationship with North Korea. And they have to. I mean, if they were to completely pull back, that country will collapse in a short period of time.
90% of all of the food and fuel that goes into North Korea comes from China. If the Chinese turned off the spigot, North Korea is paralyzed. There's nothing they could do. So there is no doubt this tremendous leverage that the Chinese possess. Can we put enough pressure on the Chinese so they act appropriately? That's another question.
Well, it seems like, I know Secretary Tillerson wrote an op-ed in the New York Times this morning, and it seems like he's talking, more the diplomacy. There's hope for diplomacy to sort of prevail, or at least to have a bigger role in 2018 with respect to North Korea. But by the same token, they're constantly improving their missile technology. They're constantly improving their nuclear capabilities. And at some point, we have to just say, hey, it's too late for diplomacy, or we're going to be pushed into that decision, won't we?
It's quite clear that the military option cannot be taken off the table. It's also clear that the military option is complicated. After all, you've had 3 decades of tunnels that are built under North Korea. You've got movable launchers that can be moved from one spot to another. Trying to take them out with tomahawks won't be so easy. So the United States has very, very serious logistical questions that would have to be answered. But there's no doubt in my mind we would prefer some sort of diplomatic solution. Could that happen? It's possible because the Chinese have been saying for a considerable period now, we can control the missile tests of North Korea if you will control your rhetoric about military options.
By the same token, China seems to have said it's okay for U.S. to have a military intervention in North Korea if North Korea fires the first shot.
Right.
What if we did something preemptively?
Well, again,
or felt the urge or need to do something preemptively?
Again, preemption is always an option. It's a very difficult option because of the moral consequences of preemption. But there is no doubt preemption is an option. And as I said, you cannot take the military option off the table. The United States has got to give very serious consideration to what we can do to forestall any further testing by the North Koreans.
Herb London, thank you very much. Have a great New Year.